Hello, everyone. Welcome to the InstructLab community meeting for September 24th. Before we start, as usual, we go through some things to remember for the meeting. All our meetings are governed by the InstructLab Community Code of Conduct. And we record our meetings and we'll post them to the InstructLab YouTube channel. So if you prefer not to be on camera, that's fine. Just turn the camera off, or you can dial in via the phone. I think somebody's on the phone currently. And if you're on the phone, you can, if you need to ask a question, feel free to interrupt as appropriate. If you're on the Google Meet, feel free to use the raise your hand function to ask questions. There's also a chat function meeting, which we usually make use of to share links and further information. You can use that as well. And finally, we have a list of attendees at the end of each meeting. Feel free to add your names if you wish to the list. All right, let's get things started. Cool. I think this is not under housekeeping, but also we had 2 talks last week on InstructLab at the Open Source Summit Europe in Vienna. Marty, would you like to summarize or give some feedback how it went?
Yeah, thanks very much, Carol. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Leslie couldn't go. So yeah, the double act became a single act, and probably was less than half what it should have been. But we plowed on. So yeah, no, the talks went very well. The first talk was on InstructLab itself, and about what InstructLab is in the community. So what I gave is a background to, you know, what the problem was out there with not being able to tune models or add content to models without forking them, and then what the lab technique brought, and then how the InstructLab is an implementation of the lab technique and the capabilities provided and get people involved. So that went well. And the second talk then was around the behind the scenes. So, you know, some of you folks are there from the start, so you've all the battle scars to show from back in February right through. So yeah, I went through kind of what was involved in getting the community off the ground from absolute scratch, from when Mark and myself started initially with just trying to run a model locally on a Mac, right through up along then to how we got the community off the ground, the structures in place, and then trying to get those things involved. So that brought quite a lot of interest as well. Folks were interested to hear that. So we're hoping to a few people touch base with us afterwards, after the talks, about the community and what they're trying to do themselves. So I think it garnered some interest. So hopefully you can build that at the other conferences. Hopefully we maybe have some talks at KubeCon, even though it's not, I suppose, directly related to KubeCon, but around Cloud Native Con. And, you know, we can bring it forward over the next few months. I know we have Tech Exchange coming up in sometime in October, I think. So that's another place where we can bring it forward. And yeah, let's see from there. But overall, there was I've noticed quite a huge shift at open source conferences, especially open source summit in the last year around AI. So everybody is, you know, on the crest of the wave of the hype, and they're trying to work out, you know, how to use AI in their applications and so forth. So, you know, that went from the keynotes, you know, from day one around the MOF, which is the Model Open Framework, to, you know, to define what is an open model, because there is no definition out there. So they're trying to define it. And in fairness, Gabrielle, who's the Linux Foundation Europe, the CEO or the leader of that, his comment was it's a sliding door. So, you know, some models are in a certain way, other models are another way. And there's quite a lot of talk around that too, what defines the open source model and what's going to be open and so forth. So I think it's going to be an interesting space over the next year and couple of years where we progress in that.
Yeah, that's very true. Thanks, Marty. Do you know if the recordings are available yet?
No, they're not up yet.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll have subtitles so that people can understand English, but we'll see how that goes.
All right, thanks. When they're available, we'll share the links and add them to our YouTube playlist. And good point about the AI emphasis in many events, open source or not. There's usually an AI track, and it's there's a lot of conversation about openness, especially even at PyTorch that some of us were at this same week. So thanks for that summary. And any other interesting talks at Open Source Summit do you think is relevant to us? Oh, what are the communities you have talked to, and is there any interest in any way we could collaborate, or is there any kind of crossover there?
Well, I suppose there's the other interesting thing that's happening is, and I suppose, it goes hand in hand with when a technology or a concept starts becoming more open is foundations. So they're springing up like mushrooms.
Yeah,
So we
indeed.
have obviously the AI Alliance. We've Opel now that Intel has put out there. So it's going to be quite interesting. How do they align? Will they converge, or will it happen like has happened before? Will they, diverge and run in parallel? And whoever has the most people, then they declare a success. So I'd be hoping that we'll kind of converge more, and we understand more where we're trying to go with the technology and what we want out of the technology. But one of the things I had a talk with research scientist in Trinity College in Dublin about 2 weeks ago, about a week before I went to Vienna, was around the fact from the industry. What I think we're looking for is, cost effectiveness, how we're going to get these models, what size models are going to run. Like you can talk about the big large language models a year ago, but from the last 6 months, an awful lot of talk has been around small language models. So going back down to the 8 byte to 7 byte, there's no clear definition, but I suppose anything below 20 billion parameters. So being able to run them from a cost-effective manner, because you can have these big models that run, but if they're too expensive to run, where's the value on it? The other one then, I suppose, is around transparency, which I talked about a minute ago. Can we trust the models? How open are the models? So I think that's going to be a key. And I suppose the final one then is, which we've been looking at, is usability and accessibility. Being able to, take an off-the-shelf large or open source model and build or being able to train it with domain knowledge up on top of that without forking it. And I suppose also then being able to how we access it, how more accessibility is happening. But as you can see as well, the amount of frameworks that are runtime frameworks that are kicking off are getting more and more. Like, so, which ones do you choose? Like you have your Llamas, you have your VLLMs and so forth. So how that will work out as well.
Right. Thanks for those insights. Anybody has any questions or comments for Marty or Open Source Summit, about Open Source Summit?
Oh, just wanted to add too, it was great to have Julia in the crowd. So Julia jumped around the side of she was in the Linux plumbing conference, and she kind of sidestepped in, and it was great to have her in the audience for when we were doing behind the scenes and talking about that. So it was nice to have her on board and being able to give a wave out and say she was part of it,
All right, cheers to Julia. Cool. I guess she's not online today. Next, we have been, a few of us have been discussing about the triage meeting timing. I guess JJ or whoever who has been attending this regularly, maybe you can give us some insight into how well attended are they, because they're supposed to be daily, but Tuesday and Thursday are the kind of the main ones. Are they, still going strong? And because some of us based in Europe would like to take part, but they start at like 9 p.m. for Dominic and 11 p.m. for me. So is there a possibility to adjust the timing to be slightly earlier so some of us can also attend and help out?
Yeah. So first of all, they have been daily. For only about a couple weeks were they Tuesday and Thursday. But they are daily. Oh, okay, minus Friday. Nobody shows up on Friday because Friday's 3 p.m. is ridiculous, right? But they are regularly attended by at least 6 or 7 people. Lisa, you can back me up on that one if you want. And we consistently talk about the issues going on, because right now the community model build, or CMB, is gated by a lot of things, and that we have updates daily on the status of where that could be, because naturally from the triage call downstream is the CMB, so it's the same people engaging in that space. We discussed trying to change the time a few times, but the people that show up consistently, this is the time they've slotted for it, so moving it would be incredibly inconvenient for a lot of people who want to be there. So it's kind of it's great that we'd have more people want to show up from our friends in EMEA, but like the moving the meeting to lose people, to gain people, to train them, it seems counterproductive. So we've been hesitant to do that. Also, being that the triage, the actual things coming in from triage and the actual taxonomy, again, they're all we're all US centric based, and there's not actually a lot of things coming in, right? Because the community is still very small, the external community. We've recently gotten 3 PRs over the last week or so, which allows us to work together and start talking about some stuff, but we still don't have a lot of the tooling built because of the situation on the hosting side and the resources actually to this project. I'm going to say this on this recorded video right now. We don't have any hardware. Like, we just don't. We've had conversations about using the MOC, some people inside of IBM. We have words, but no one's actually giving us anything. I've gone ahead and quote unquote borrowed machines here and there, but this project doesn't work. We are not moving forward because we don't have dedicated resources. Until we have dedicated resources, the triage team can only do so much. We also need to build our tooling around it. For instance, the pre-check bot, which is really, really important for a lot of things. And Gagan, I know you're going to tell me about the MOC, but until I actually get access to it, it's all just words for me. But go ahead, Gagan.
Yes. So is there a place where I can actually look into what is the exact hardware we need in terms of GPU as well as compute, so that I can say, okay, now we're going to reserve this for InstructLab community models, and then we can talk about it. I completely agree with you. There has been some delay when it comes to the turnaround time to get the infrastructure as well as communication. So I'm trying to address that problem.
Charlie, that's pretty accurate. I mean, that's whatever, like, that also means that the community model build will be about a week to run. There is a exponential change between A100s and H100s, as we all know. The disadvantage of that is that obviously the cycle will be about a month from a PR being put in to possibly getting part of the build, which is not exactly a great turnaround, but at least it will be built. But again, that is until we get the actual hardware. So, and also we need to have access to the Granite base model, which to this day, I still don't actually know how to get my hands on. Because we're building everything off the Granite base model per the documentation from Mo Duffy and the way we're going to be going, which is one of the reasons why we had to roll back the CMB from the original release, is because we built it off of the Granite starter model, which is incorrect. I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the documentation and process was not put together at all. So we had to kind of reverse engineer all this from the ground up, which is not great, but we at least have some way forward right now. So until we get the hardware and until I get SSH access to something, we are dead in the water. That's what it boils down to.
Thanks for the update. If is there a document? Is there like a meeting document where?
No, we don't document any of this stuff
right.
because it changes so rapidly
Okay.
that it by the time we document it, it'll be already out of date.
No, more like meeting document. Just like today
No.
we discussed this. Okay.
No, we can't. Or at least I can't, because there's just no way for me to. I don't write things down because I can't. Like I have to talk this stuff out.
Right.
So, and we don't have anyone who writes anything down in the meetings anyway. So it's all just like show up to the meeting and discuss the situation. It's very firefighting. All we're doing is firefighting in that meeting right now.
Okay. So we depend on you to update us in, like, for example, this committee meeting. So, and see if there are ways we can help support, at least not support directly, but know what issues you're facing and if possible address them. Like
money. I need money. That's what it boils down to. Like,
yes,
this isn't gonna,
money.
yeah, this is not going to work farther. Like I am frankly fed up with the amount of work and if you will allow me the analogy of the Phoenix project, I feel a lot like Brent right now, and I don't want to be Brent. That's not how you build a successful open source project. And I'm fed up with it, right? Like I should be, I want to be building the community, not, being a scaffolding for the community. Does that make sense?
Right. Definitely. Thanks for highlighting this and kind of really addressing the need that we are short of this funding and resources. All right. Anybody have anything to add or feedback? Yes, Nathan.
I can't help but notice that, like, I hear you, JJ, for sure. I can't help but notice that, like, I think we need others from the oversight committee. JJ's on the oversight committee. He attends this meeting very regularly. I think we need others from the oversight committee, as well as people from the management side at both Red Hat and IBM who attend this meeting, because I hear JJ's concerns, and I would love nothing more than to be able to help him out with this. But I mean, I, as an individual contributor from Red Hat doing maintainer stuff, like I don't have the sort of influence or resources that I can provide to help JJ. I would like to be able to do those things, but I can't. And we often will go to, at least on the Red Hat side, we'll go to our bosses and we'll tell them these things. But I think, to echo what JJ said, like, that ends up kind of just being talk. And I think if we're going to do like he described and build this community, and if we're going to be doing those things, then we need stakeholders that are able to actually help alleviate these concerns present at this meeting, and perhaps present at the triage meetings as well. That's sort of my gut reaction from what JJ has to say. And yeah, I, unfortunately, like I said, I don't know the best way to go about this. But that is my sort of gut reaction as to what I think would help sort of move this needle and get this to be from being a problem, not being a problem.
Hi, Kara. Yes.
So echoing what Nathan was saying, I think one of the things that, not I think, one of the things that OSPO is going to be doing, Carol, Leslie, myself, is to, when we first had when we were first developing the community, we had ample amount of people coming and wanting to contribute. So it's really talking about the stakeholders, it's re-engaging with other parts of the business, not just within the product side, but we have a huge field CTO organization and people that are just not sure how to get plugged in. So Goggin, I do think we need to talk about the MOC and making sure that we get JJ what he needs. But this is definitely about not burning JJ out. But this is also, we have like a macro need here. Like, we are needing to grow the community in a healthy way so that we don't burn people out, and that we are making sure that we are also presenting the community in a correct way. I mean, I think, our mission is that makes AI accessible for everyone. And that's not really what the intention is, or that's not really InstructLab right at the moment, from my perspective. The cheese stands alone. But that being said, I think that there's, especially leading up to Tech Exchange, OSPO for sure is making sure that we are working to get these things, our docs, updated where there are glaring holes, making sure that we are getting resources, because we can't go to Tech Exchange, we can't go to All Things Open and all these, KubeCon, and expect contributors to come and, have a flat experience. Sorry. 2 cents. I'll take it back. JJ.
You hit on a couple points there that I wanted to reiterate, especially with this audience. First of all, real-time information. Mo is actually slacking me right now, and it looks like there might be a DGX box available to me soon. I don't know what that means. We will find out, and we'll go from there. But Kara, you did put on a point that also is upstream from the taxonomy, but we do need to talk about as a community. The actual on-ramp for this community to be effective for a downstream user is not sustainable. Over the last couple weekends, keyword weekends, I have answered questions inside of Slack and actually had to get on Google Meets with people to resolve their issues. This is not about a frequently asked question problem, because 9 out of 10 times it's going through the normal debug process of like working somebody through what their problem is and discovering that, as I like to say, their virtual environment is fucked, right? But you can't see that immediately. You have to walk through the process to get there. So there's not really a frequently asked question problem here, but there's a community support problem that we need to talk about. Because if we are going to bring people into this community to revitalize it, we need a better on-ramp process. So I know for a fact there's people trying to use this on Ubuntu and Arch also, which, I mean, in theory, it's Python, right? So it should just work. But there are little things here and there that people are starting to show up. So we need a larger army of people to be willing to work through these problems. And I know for a fact, I know we talked about this earlier, but Windows is a real big problem here. And people are going to start asking about Windows support and walking down that path. We need to either support WSL2 or something along those lines sooner than later, because I know there's a lot of Windows laptops out there, or Windows desktops out there with GPUs for gaming machines. that we need to officially support, which will open up a lot of doors. Hopefully that was made sense. Go ahead, Charlie.
You're muted.
Yeah. Did he just?
He's coming back.
We are planning to work on trying to find more support on Slack. So that's one thing. But yeah, definitely a glaring problem right there.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my laptop is annoying. I have some things to say about a couple of those things. Kind of to echo what Nathan said, is that all of these problems that are being brought up, I think, are very on point and things that we need to focus on, but the audience here can't really do anything about them. Like we've been kind of saying the same things to the people that need to hear them, but I think if the community and the people on this call feel super strongly about everything that's been said, that it needs to be raised to the proper individuals to get prioritization. I will say that there have been, meetings at Red Hat and internally that have discussed all of the things that I think JJ just kind of brought up, which is on-ramping into the community, the laptop support, the Windows support, all of that stuff has been discussed. It just doesn't have a clear priority at the moment because there isn't a voice to voice them besides like me and a couple other people on the Instruct-Lab team. So this is a great discourse that we're having, but the proper individuals need to be told about this, because I feel like this is a frequent theme I've seen in this community meeting, which is it's great to have the discourse, but the Instruct-Lab team, which is most of the people in this meeting, has kind of repeated that we can't really act on these things unless we're given the prioritization to do so. So I think bringing it up with members of the oversight committee and otherwise is a super important step that I don't think at least to my knowledge, hasn't necessarily been taken yet. So that's just something I want to highlight, is that the team knows these things need help, and we know the community needs help. We know the laptop use case needs help, but we just don't have the bandwidth to act upon those things because they're not prioritized at the moment, because we're the only ones echoing this to the proper individuals.
But Charlie, sorry, I got to break in. As someone on the oversight committee, right? I don't know who to talk to, right? Like, I don't know who to actually go and say, hey, fix this. Like, I don't want to just, pass the buck here, but this is the quintessential problem between an open source community, a corporate funded community, and a downstream product, right? Like, we're in this weird triangle where we see these problems, but we don't actually know who owns the purse strings, right?
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear that. I think the best person to talk to, which is Mo, about this. And we brought it up to Mo, and we discussed the idea of maybe a technical oversight committee as adjacent to the oversight committee. There isn't a clear group of people to kind of bring these things to that is externally facing. I agree with that. But as a majority internally facing individuals here, I think that we all have the capability to reach out to specific people within Red Hat and within IBM to kind of get these wheels turning. I don't really have like specific names or people to throw at you besides Mo. And I know I'll do my best to talk to Mo about this as well. But I mean, I know there's prioritization internally inside of Red Hat for the downstream product, of course. And a lot of that doesn't consider community. And I think bring the fact of community, the community needs help up to those people. That kind of overlap between the oversight committee and the internal Red Hat planning is a super important thing. That's all I'm saying, is that if the Instruct-Lab team is aiming to get prioritization to do this work, it's not really up to us a lot of the time, unless we want to work weekends, which a lot of us do as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie. Kara?
So one of the places that we're going to share this is happening actually right now is in the REL AI weekly sync. And so there are many stakeholders there. One of the things, and you know, typically in that meeting, it's everything is copacetic and InstructLab, but we are sharing the glaring risks that we've all discussed today if we do not get support. And part of the, I think, the real stakeholder is yes, Mo, but it's getting this in front of Stephen Hewells and making sure that he is aware of that, what is going on. I mean, I know he's getting his engineering organization set up, but that is going to be a conversation that Leslie will have with Mo, and then, you know, from there, figure out the best course of action. So the conversations are definitely, you know, and have happened, but I think now that we've had this change internally as to who is kind of doing what, Stephen Hewells is going to be the person that's going to help to give us, I would say, help to give us additional resources, because it's going to feed it right into his product.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and I just want to like be clear, like sign me up for helping with the community. The moment that a lot of us are allowed to go do that, I really want to do that. And I think the laptop use case and the community contributions are like a key entryway just in general to all of this. And I know there was a lot of neglect on that over the last couple of months. And I've personally been working kind of on the side to get a lot of the laptop functionality, working better, and with a lot of the new techniques that I know have been introduced that are really centered around CUDA and NVIDIA. Because like the problem that JJ is hitting, every person is going to hit that. Like they can't get hardware because hardware is like impossible to get for a regular person unless you buy a gaming rig, which even at that point, the training is not that great. Versus like you have Macs, which if you really take advantage of all of the hardware on a Mac, you can do a lot of great things. So I do want to prioritize that. I just want to make that clear. And I think Stephen is another great person to bring this up to. And I know that he cares a lot, and so does Mo about the community. It just needs to be prioritized. Yeah, I see Nathan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, kind of going back to like what JJ said about like the triangle, right? Like, I definitely think, you know, we're in this situation where we have the upstream governance as it stands. We have the two main sort of corporate stakeholders here, which at this point are Red Hat and IBM. And that's the way I see it. That's kind of the triangle, right? You have the IBM folks, you have the Red Hat folks, which I don't know as much about the IBM structure, but for Red Hat, as of now, it's our AI business unit that sort of has everyone. Who Stephen Hewells, the person who's mentioned, leads the AI engineering org. So that's sort of where that fits in. But I think, I mean, I think in terms of the upstream governance is that there needs to be an entity that is not a corporate first entity that is mainly focused on the product. I mean, these are important things because this is where, you know, things like money and hardware, et cetera, can come from. But I mean, I think one of the problems that Charlie alluded to this with this project is that the governance we have is sort of a weak governance in my eyes at this point. We have this oversight committee. It's 7 folks. You know, like I said, JJ's the only one here, so like big props to JJ for that. But I mean, for me, and I say this as someone who's not on the oversight committee, who's not involved in day to day, but I mean, I've done, frankly, a lot of GitHub administration that is sort of outside my Red Hat, if you will, but is just me as a project maintainer wanting things to be tight and well managed. And I find myself, you know, I'm in a DM conversation with the 7 people from the oversight committee that I found on the GitHub team, and that's my way of communicating with the oversight committee. And it seems to me that like if there are these glaring issues, you know, not to say that the buck stops entirely with that committee, but if there are these glaring issues on the upstream side with this project, it seems to me, and like I said, this is just my perspective. I don't know if this could be misinformed, but it seems to me that committee needs to take up the impetus of this committee is entirely of Red Hat and IBM people. I mean, this is the upstream governance that involves both of these corporate stakeholders. It seems to me like the natural place for a lot of these concerns to get alleviated. And if that's not happening, what I'd have to ask is if that's not the job of the oversight committee, then what is the job of the oversight committee, and what actions are being taken by that body to address these glaring problems with the organization?
Very good
Shrug emoji.
questions.
Yeah,
Shrug
so that's not great. So, I think that conversation needs to be had with that body. And if the governance needs to change so that the project can thrive, we change the governance. But I mean, kind of like, again, to Charlie's point, I think a lot of us have good intentions with the project. I think a lot of us want the community to succeed. And we've done everything we can within our roles as individual contributors to make that happen. But at the end of the day, if the governing body of the community itself isn't pushing for these things and isn't working within their own purview, both as oversight committee members as well as employees of their respective, corporate entities, then I'm not sure what the rest of us can do. And if there was a change to the governance that gave us more ability to do that, that's great. But that's just, I'm sort of at a loss as to. I mean, I'm a maintainer on several of these repos. I mean, like I said, I'm not an OC member, but I'm I'm an org owner. I'm about as high up as you can be without that being a thing, and I'm sort of at the end of my rope in terms of what I can do. So I feel like this body really needs to kind of take the reins and raise this. And I mean, in theory, I'm not sure how these committee members were selected, but in theory, they should be representative of the interests of both Red Hat and IBM, especially considering Red Hat's owned by IBM. So, this seems primarily to me like a communication issue, but almost as much a governance issue. And I think that that's something that needs to get addressed as well.
Good point. I myself, I don't know how the committee was formed. It was after I joined, before I joined, I mean. So, but as with any committee, I think it needs to be updated if the current members can't kind of fulfill the role that they are entrusted with. So, but I think in the first place, let's give them a chance to let's bring this to the committee somehow and have this be addressed. And I guess if they don't have a meeting regularly, we'll just have to. Is there a Slack channel that all the committee members are in?
Yeah, it's a private one.
Okay, got it.
And I'd actually, it's a private one.
Okay. So there's no easy way to kind of add the committee.
I believe there's an email, a mailing list.
Okay.
That can be, if they want to send an email to it, and then everyone gets it on from the oversight committee. But I think it's never been used from what I understand.
Okay. It's one of the Google mailing lists we created but never used.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's see if I can find information about that. I'll share it. I see a maintainers, a code of conduct committee mailing list, but maybe it's even, I don't even see it because it's only for steering committee. I mean the oversight committee. So. All right. Any more comments on this? How should we move ahead?
I think we continue having the conversations and just on. So one of the things to make everyone, to be transparent so that everyone is aware of. So as I mentioned in the REL call today, noting the risks that are identified. I'd say the kind of the top 3 risks. And then we're giving about a week to address them. And then from there, figuring out, how people are going to plug in across the business. When I say the business, I mean the Red Hat side. So we'll, in our meetings, JJ, we'll have to figure out how it makes sense to plug in, IBM. But I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation until we get some structure. And I know that we might not have a scribe in those triage meetings, but I will volunteer coming and scribing, because I think one of the things that we're going to do, especially to, Nathan and Charlie's points, is of what needs to happen with the laptops. We do need to figure out some sort of near-term plan as to what needs to be addressed, because I know that that's going to be asked of us when we present it to Hules or whomever. So if there's things in the triage meeting that I can incorporate in there, that will be helpful. So I will start coming to those meetings.
Thanks, Kara.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. Charlie mentioned he has done some work in flight for laptop fix-ups. That's great to hear. Okay, moving on. We have only 8 minutes left since we try to end 5 minutes before the hour. We have a couple of new content since the last time we met. One is a, I guess, blog post or developer post on how InstructLab's synthetic data generation works and enhances LLMs. And the other one is actually a 7-minute video about InstructLab and a very quick demo, which Cedric helped us. He created the video on my request for PyTorch conference, but it's a general video that can be shared more broadly, of course. So feel free to take a look. We shared it at PyTorch, which, even though it's a shorter video than most, it's still hard to expect people to stand around for 7 minutes and watch the whole thing. So on the second day, we did more of like hands-on demo with the Red Hat demo platform. But still, it's a great video, I think, for just to get a really quick overview of InstructLab and introduce people to our project. So feel free to take a look and share that. Open source, anybody has anything they would like to talk about at this meeting today? If not, thanks everyone for attending. Let's continue the great conversations and discussions, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. I'm gonna stop recording now.